Hi, I'm Alex,
And I'm Tim.
and this is
Twinfluenced.
Twinfluenced, our podcast with hot takes and unfiltered thoughts about everything pop culture and current.
Join us every Tuesday
And get Twinfluenced. All right, thank you guys for joining another episode of Twinfluenced. We got our special episode. Well, is it a special episode?
We've been talking about it for a month, so I guess kinda.
So it feels special. It's finally here. We're finally gonna do our Twinfluence presents the Twinfluence Book Club uh breakdown of Original Sin, our second book for the book club. Um so before we get into that, did you have anything you want to briefly discuss, or should we just jump straight into it? I have my toast, but I don't have butter. I ran out of butter, so I'm just gonna eat my toast as is.
That's so sad. It's like a peasant. No, okay,
I'm too poor.
I am gonna talk about Trisha Paytas's baby really quickly, just to get us energized and ready. So Trisha Paytas had her third kid, and it was a boy, and she named him Aquaman Moses Paytas, whatever the other last name is. And everyone was like dragging her because it's a really terrible name. And
Hmm.
my theory is that either his name really is Aquaman, or someone had said that she's giving them all fake names so that to like protect their privacy, but I don't think that's true just because the first two, their names aren't that bad. Like they're odd, but they are still believable as
Well,
real names.
and why would you give your kid a fake name but then constantly put it on the internet? Like, there's people
Well,
who.
because it's like so the idea would be like so that they don't know their actual names. So like if you go to school as Aquaman Paytas, everyone's gonna know, oh, that's Trisha Paytas's kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why she would choose that name. I think if she wanted to do water theme, there was
Well,
a
I guess
million
that's kind
other
of like
names.
Nicki Minaj calls her baby Papa Bear, and everyone knows him as Papa Bear, but that's not his real name.
I thought Papa Bear was the husband.
No, Papa Bear's the baby.
Let's dive into original
Yeah.
sin.
Yeah, the book.
I don't have the book.
Oh,
Let's.
so
What are your opening thoughts of the book Original Sin by Jake Tapper and Alex? What's his
Thompson.
Thompson? If let's just do give general thoughts first, and then we'll break it down.
Oh, okay. This book is not necessary. We all knew all this already. That was my initial reaction.
My initial reaction is that it's a waste of time and you don't really learn anything.
Mm-mm.
And it's really just like a smear campaign. I want to know who hired him to write this book.
George Clooney.
That's what it seems like.
Well, and it's obviously a money grab by Jake Tapper because he does nothing in the book to acknowledge the fact that he is part of the cover up for like covered specifically for Joe Biden. And
Well, let's talk about the bias. Should we I was going to talk about that later on, but should we open with the blatant bias of the book?
yes.
He's biased towards the media, assumes that the media is always truthful and objective when we know that they are not. He's biased towards the Bidens. He clearly does not like this administration in hindsight, and so he's very critical of them. And he doesn't acknowledge the faults of other Democratic players, and he also doesn't acknowledge how the way that Trump and Biden are portrayed by the media was never equal. And so it gets lost.
I agree with what you're saying, but I feel like I agree in a different way. But
Oh
I'm just
my
gonna say
God.
yes, I agree with everything you just said. I think that there's a lot of bias present throughout the book that they're still unaware of, and it's kind of like this book is supposed to be like a hindsight what went wrong type of thing. And these
Right.
two people still don't have their finger on the pulse of what went wrong. That was
Exactly.
my takeaway.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's
So
and it's just way too soon. They released this book as soon like didn't it come out like only a few months
it came
ago?
out, yeah. And then I don't know if you remember, as soon as this book came out, they got embarrassed because then Joe Biden was like, sucks
I
for
have
you guys. I've had cancer this whole time and that didn't even
right.
make it in your book.
Exactly. He was has they're just like kicking him while he's down.
They're It's interesting because they write about Biden as if he is coherently making decisions while
Right.
acknowledging at the same time he was not making any decisions.
Right, exactly. It's like his team around him was also they were gatekeeping the information they were giving him. So even if he is making decisions, he's making
And they
decisions
really
based
didn't
on
talk
what they
about
want
that
him to
until
do.
the end. They really didn't
I
talk
know.
about that until the end when it came to like the polling data
Mm-hmm.
where they were withholding the data, but they didn't really. And even though, so the book starts. Let's just get into the beginning, right?
Yes.
Chapter one is about and like they're introducing the book. They're getting up. They're setting up for the fact that they're setting the tone for the book in chapter one, and they talk about how this is all Biden's fault,
Yeah.
and Kamala Harris had to deal with that. And my reaction is, but she was in on it too. What say you?
No, I don't think they make it very to me they make it seem as though she had very limited interaction with the uh administration.
And
So I
that's the
don't think
problem.
that is a problem, but that's because of how the Biden team acted. I think that was their MO. They didn't let any, they say in the book that they didn't let any really big names in on discussions. They didn't even let cabinet members in on meetings. So, like, there was clearly a big lack of communication.
Well,
But I'm going to say that it's really funny how every single Democrat that gets interviewed not only in this book, but in the beginning chapters as well. It's like at the very first few pages. It's just this over and over. How every Democrat is like, yeah, I noticed he quote unquote wasn't on, but I said nothing. That is the
mm-hmm.
excuse you will see throughout this book by every single official. So it's like when you're in school, they teach you when you see something, say something. So why aren't these people saying anything?
That's about school shooters.
I think that you can take that motive and attach it to all walks of life. You see something wrong, you say something,
I agree, and
and they didn't.
that's where the entire administration failed.
It's where the
Of
entire
the
administration
cabinet
failed, and it's where the
secretaries,
whole cabinet failed. It's where the whole party failed. And it, I wrote this
and
down.
even the Republican leaders like McCarthy and Johnson.
It's just a government issue. It's not just a Biden issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because they all do this, and I think that that's the bigger issue of this book is that they're focusing all this criticism towards the Biden team. This is a reflection of the entirety of our government, of people who are old as shit holding on to power because the people around them are encouraging them to do that. And so it's this particular issue isn't a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's like the structure of our whole Congress and presidency as a whole, where we have these people who should no longer be in office who are still in office.
I agree.
And they quoted your fave in the book. Did you like that?
Wait, whom are you referring
Nikki
to?
Haley.
Wait, did I write that down? Oh yeah, about the first candidate to uh the younger the first party to have the younger candidate. Are you talking about that?
No, when she said that Congress is
Oh, the
some
nursing home
America,
thing.
yeah, America's most powerful nursing home.
Yes. I didn't write that down, but I remember that.
I didn't write that down, but I remember it too.
I have two things. So they point out really quickly that there are five aides and senior people that were running the country. Um, and they wouldn't, and those, as you're saying, were the ones that wouldn't notify cabinet members. And the example they gave was the Treasury Secretary, but there were. So also the only thing this came later, it seemed like the only two that they kept saying like were in on the loop were Blinken, who was Secretary of State, and uh the Defense Secretary. What's his name? Austin Lloyd. He has two first names, so I always forget which order they go in.
I don't
But
remember
like
any of their names.
other than those two secretaries, it was like everyone else was out of the loop.
Right.
And even they were like kind of still like not in, they weren't in the circle. They were just more, their just positions were too high up to like be completely out of the loop. Um, so then they talk about that. And then my other point was, so I don't remember what chapter this was, but so they talk about the doctor, Kevin O'Connor.
The
And I
corrupt
wrote,
doctor.
yeah, because now he's under a lot of scrutiny to testify. He invoked his Fifth Amendment right when Congress just called, like last month, Congress called him to testify about this issue, and he invoked his Fifth Amendment right, even though there's
Because
no
I mean,
ongoing crime. He
there's
invoked.
for what though? For why? What is the point of even questioning him now?
This is about they're doing an investigation into the pardons and stuff like that. So they're looking into his mental acuity of whether Joe Biden was actually aware of the pardons since
I'm
it was
sure he
auto
was.
signed. I don't know. You have to look into your own reporting on that. But that, so I thought like it's just relevant still that this doctor, and even as they go through some of the reports in the book, and it's like he would refuse to mentally test him. All his reports would talk about how which another thing in this book that you learn is that Joe Biden can't walk. He's like, which I mean, if you watched him, you would know that. But like, it's like actually like he has he's losing his ability to walk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these White House doctors. They work for their direct president, so they're not like objective doctors who are going to give real
Right.
results. They all hide stuff. Um, that's just
Yeah,
how
but
it
this guy
is.
refused. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
of
just thought
course
that
he's
was
going
relevant.
to. Of course he's going to refuse to give a test because they don't want to take the test.
Yeah. Another thing to point out is this book started in uh what year did they start this book? Like how far they started in 2020, right? The 2020 campaign.
Yeah, they started, yeah, with the 2020. They go, I mean, their timeline's all over the place, but they start with like, they talk about his whole campaign history from when he was a senator and stuff. But
Well, but in terms of
I
the
think it does start with
they start pointing
him
out
being
declines
president.
in 2019 and
Yeah,
2020.
yeah.
And this is what they said for the reason that this was his approach during the start of his presidency, and it said that there was a strategic sense that the media landscape was dramatically different and there wasn't enough benefit to do interviews. What does this mean? This really means that that the media was already reporting favorably on the Biden administration, and so Biden didn't feel the need to do an interview and potentially mess that up because they already cover for him. So that's why he didn't do interviews.
If they cover for him, then why wouldn't he just do an interview? Because then he would know that there would be no consequences.
Because he can't speak in a straight sentence.
So clearly, if he did an interview and he can't speak in a straight sentence, then it's because the media would be all over that, as they continuously
No,
were.
because you're not understanding. Just because the media would cover up for him doesn't mean that the American people would still. It's about the people who actually vote. The media doesn't determine who the president is, it's the people. So even if the media sits there and says the sky is yellow, the people will still see that the sky is blue. So that's why they decided it's best if we just let them say that and not show the people otherwise. That's the whole point.
I disagree with that opinion. I don't think it's because the media is already covering for him. I think that if they think that he's fine, then yeah, they're gonna continue to support him. But we have seen them hyper focus on his health issues. That is the whole thing. There is a quote where they say later on in the book that Trump was only 3.5 years younger, but the public didn't see it the same way. And it's because the media doesn't report it in the same way. Trump's does misspeaks all the time. He tripped upstairs too. He is also mentally declining. You cannot say he's not. But that's not reported in the same way as Biden's was because it's safer to go after Biden than it is to go after Trump.
I don't think that's true at all. I think you're deflecting. And I'll give you a perfect example of it. Because Jake Tapper talked about this. Jake Tapper had a 15-minute interview with Joe Biden in 2022. And I don't recall him challenging Biden on these already known incapacities that he wrote about in the book, talking about, oh, this happened in 21 and this happened early 2022 and this happened in 2020.
But this
Jake Tapper
isn't
didn't
because
confront
this
him
is
on any
all
of
from
that.
interviews from the past. He probably didn't necessarily know.
But
These
we
are
did
all
know but we did know. That's the thing. Everyone knew of these events already. Everyone watching Joe Biden following the news actually did know if you watched more than just MSNBC and CNN.
you don't know the extent of it unless you were with him in
That's where
person.
his job comes up to be like asking the question, but he didn't ask the question.
Okay. I
Next,
want to say
I want to
that
say Jake Tapper has a duty to reveal who these anonymous secretaries are because they're inevitably going to run for higher office, whether it's Senate or president, aka Pete Buttigieg, who's definitely a source in this story but didn't want to be named.
I mean, I would have liked it
And
if
the
they were named. However, you can't force a name to be named, especially in a book like this. But yeah, I wish that
no, but
politicians would stand by what they said.
I think at the time when they run, like Pete Buttigieg's already talking about running. I have a high speculation he's a source in this book, and I think at that point, whether it's he runs for Senate in Michigan or he's running for president, then Jake Tapper has an obligation to say, "Okay, yeah, you are the one that told me all this stuff." And now you have
Mm,
to face accountability for it. You shouldn't be allowed to be anonymous if you're running for a higher office position. It's different if you're going to retire.
I don't think it matters that much.
I do. I think it's really weird. Joe Biden wanted to be called Dr. B.
I think Jill Biden is really weird. I think she is just like an odd person who I don't know. I don't think this book does a good job of really showing who Jill Biden is because she's just very odd in the way that she acts. It's like she's on a power trip, but then it's like but then she also is like weirdly doesn't, she's not shown to be involved in major decision making, but she is shown to like have a high influence. So it's like, what is she doing behind the scenes?
But then even then, that's not true. They don't know whether or not she is involved in the decision making because it was revealed that she attended a lot of cabinet meetings. And the first, like, why is the first lady at a cabinet meeting? Like, that's just not normal. And she was like meeting with, they talked about how she would make this national security people give her talking points when she would go on foreign trips.
I mean, they all clearly overstepped. But I just want to say that,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, when they're detailing everything leading up to the timeline wise, and then they never once talk about the insurrection or how that would have impacted Joe Biden. I would have liked to see his reaction to that behind the scenes. Secondly, with how much baggage the Biden family has, and with how much trauma they all seem to have, I would think that they wouldn't want to stay in the public eye and that they wouldn't want him to run again. So it seems like a weird contradiction for them to be so selfish and
Because
to
they would
stay
need the
in
money.
power.
The Biden family's corrupt, and so they need money. That's why they
I
all.
don't think they
That's why
need
Nancy
money.
Pelosi is still in office because her husband is making hundreds of $1 millions off of her
I
insider
don't think it's
trading.
about need. I think it's just want.
It's a greedy thing. Well, it's definitely not need. It's a want.
Uh, do you think the book gets repetitive? I think it gets
Yes.
so repetitive. It's just like
So about halfway through the book, before they even get to the fucking debate, they just start. And even after the debate, it's basically the same story over and
it
over, but through a
is. It
different
is.
Democrat operative. And it's like, okay, we get it. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one had the balls to say anything. Like that's
It
the end
is.
story. And
It just
it's
gets to a pylon to a certain point for me. Like it's just,
it's not even a pylon, it's just like embarrassing. It's like this is not good. These are
but at some point it's like, why are we analyzing every time he misremembers, every time he misspeaks? Is just like so biased against him. And it's like you've already established that he is declining mentally. You've already established he's declining physically. So it's just like the examples keep going and going and going. It's like it I will be honest, towards the end of the book, I was actually starting to root for Biden because it was just like, well, it's just like keeps piling on and piling on and piling on. And it's like, to me, I don't think he is an evil person. I think this is at I feel like we need to acknowledge what this was. This was elder abuse. That's how I feel. Like, at what point do we not sit down and recognize that this was a group of people taking advantage of this old man and gatekeeping information from him? And so he's thinking everything is fine. Meanwhile, he has no business being put under this stress, no business running again, no business being in the public eye. And it's just like a repetitive, never ending cycle.
so I have a few comments regarding the media and regarding how they really were favorable, despite what you seem to think.
We're going
And
back
there's
to that.
because it came up later in the book, because as you mentioned, this book is really repetitive. And I have two lines written down. So they write at one point, many reporters took White House denials at face value. Like Jake Tapper and his entire network. That's all they did is they report White House talking points as truths, which they don't do that for a Republican administration or even the Obama administration. They were actually reporting on the Obama administration more than what they did with Joe Biden. Um, Another thing that really stood out to me was the stage town hall that was filled with reporters. What reporters went along with that? That seems really fucked up. They pretended to be normal people asking Joe Biden questions, but it was all a bunch of reporters that had questions pre-planned.
Well, that's
That's
the whole
again,
thing. It's like, why is
again,
he
that's
was
the
clearly a
media
part of it.
covering.
So why
Well,
is he
that's
acting like he's not?
well, again, that's
I
the
agree.
media covering up for him, and that's where he got extra favorable coverage. That's my whole point.
Okay, but not that favorable.
Okay, but
And
more
let's
favorable than
not
he should have
act
gotten.
like,
All right, then I want to move on because they said Richetti, that's one of the aides. They said he couldn't do the chief of staff job because he wouldn't be able to tell the president hard truths. However, Ron Klain was not, that was the former guy. He was not telling the president hard truths. He was actively lying to the president to make him feel better. And the next Zients did the same thing. So clearly, no one was able to tell this guy hard truths, as our point that we pointed out previously. I just wanted to get to that. And then a justification that Anita Dunn, one of the other number that she was in the group of five, she said she thought Joe Biden was totally fine, but he would just embarrass himself. That doesn't make sense. Someone who's totally fine wouldn't embarrass himself when speaking.
it's because they're in a cult. It's a cultic system. That's why. And they're all going to defend the, no matter how ridiculous they sound, they're going to defend it so that they could keep doing what they're doing. And no one can tell a hard truth because they're giving half truths because they don't want him to know the truth because they don't want him to think that he can't win. They don't want him to think that he shouldn't still be in office. They're
All right.
revving him up and being like, "You're the man. Everyone loves you. Look what you've done with the economy. You've done what no one else can do." Meanwhile, everyone is like, "We can't afford groceries."
So I know you said you have pages and notes, so I'll take a break from going through mine and see if you have anything more to say.
I think that this book is completely ignores the bigger issue, and that is that we allow people to stay in office for too long, and we allow these people to just do whatever they want, but it also doesn't hold everyone
But
accountable.
that's not even a strong argument on this standpoint because, okay, like it goes, so the book has this one chapter where it goes through like, oh, this was like the nursing home thing with Nikki Haley, and then it went through like the Mitch McConnell thing and the Dianne Feinstein thing and like all the people in the Senate and Congress and like the one woman who was like the Republican that was like thrown in the nursing home or whatever. Like that just happened like last year.
Yeah.
But so that's like where that argument stands. But this is the office of the President of the United States where like, yeah, there's no age limit, but you know how old the president is when you're electing him, and you still are term limited as the president. So it gets to a bigger issue of like, okay, you don't want to limit the president's age because that's what they're going to say that's ageist, but then it's like, which I don't think it is. I think you should have a limit, and I think the limit should be 75. And even then, that's pushing it. I
That's
feel like,
too old.
I think 75 by the end of your second term.
I feel like it should be, the
So
limit
if
should
I
be
were to write,
60,
if I were to write, no, 60, that's younger than the retirement age. That's psycho.
maybe 65.
So if I was to write an amendment, which I did write it, it's in my notes. And if I were to amend the Constitution, I would say no one shall serve president older than the age of 75, meaning that if you get elected into office, that means meaning if you are 74, you're ineligible to run for president because you would be older than 75 during your presidency. So the youngest you could run for election or re-election would be like 71. which I think is a fair and reasonable age. Did you freeze her? You just staring blankly
I just
at
have
me.
nothing to say to this. This is like I don't have anything to say to this.
That's just my idea, and I'm just throwing it out there. And if you like it, let's hold a constitutional convention and let's just force them to sign our amendment. You gotta get new earbuds. Every episode, I see your earbuds
It's
falling out
because
of your
I don't have
ears.
money for new earbuds. I'm gonna
I
go back to
don't,
my notes that you cut me off of.
because if you look at like whatever, go ahead. But it also depends. Like if you look at like someone like a Bernie Sanders, he's not like he's like doesn't seem mentally incapable.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like there are people
So
who are with it, and then there are people who are not.
right, but go ahead to your notes.
My next point is that I don't understand the purpose of this book because nothing
You
is
said this
new.
3 times. This is how could this be your next point? This is you already said this.
I didn't say this.
Yeah, you did. You opened it up saying this.
Okay, well, I stand by that. Nothing's new or groundbreaking. And
Mm-hmm.
but I also want to point out that clearly his team was corrupt. We know this, especially that guy who demanded $4 million to stay
Oh,
on
yes.
his. It was like, what the hell
But
are we
for the
doing?
he left the White House to run the campaign, and he said he wants $4 million, and Joe Biden was just like, okay. And they said the next highest paid person on the campaign was only making three, only as if it's not a lot, but like compared, was making 300,000, which is a lot, but it's not $4 million.
Right. So it's like clearly he just is in it for the money.
Yeah, and this is a guy that's in the circles. So this is like
Right.
as you were talking about, this is one of the guys that's benefiting off of the Biden family, and this is why it pays to be a yes man because you get to be paid $4 million when you run their campaign.
Exactly. But I also want to talk again about the bias towards the media. They act like the media, as I said before, is a subjective and always factual thing. And they will make statements throughout the book as if they're fact, but they're not fact, it's their opinion. Like when they say
Mm-hmm.
that like the people investigating them, like Garland and her, are these ethical people who did everything correctly. That is their opinion. That's a subjective opinion because I personally have a lot of criticisms for Merrick Garland. I think that
Me
it's
too.
really like he goes for Biden. First of all, they don't even bring it to a full charge. So it's like all you're doing is setting your own president up to lose. And then they go so soft on Trump until it's like too late. So that is my criticism with that. And
Um, s-
I
s- Two criminal prosecutions is soft.
would it was he didn't get convicted until he already won at that
That's the
point.
ju that's well, first of all, he got convicted in a state trial, but in terms of the federal convictions or lack of, that's because of the judges and the judicial system. But that's which is
Because they
unfortunately
didn't
to
push
Merrick
on it.
Garland's demise, he doesn't have control over the judicial branch. Otherwise, he would have been convicted and thrown in jail much sooner. But because the judicial system stopped those, that's outside of Merrick Garland. But to say that he was too soft on Trump because he only did two and said, I don't know how many more you would have wanted. 10?
A lot. Anyway,
Don't you see how crazy you sound?
I mean, I don't think I'm crazy. But anyway, I don't think it's crazy that criminals should be held accountable for what they do.
I think it's crazy to say that someone actively being criminally prosecuted in two different cases and then being two different state cases on top of that was going too soft on.
Did he get any sort of punishment?
But that's not, you're talking about Merrick Garland specifically went too soft on him. Merrick Garland brought the cases through the Justice Department brought the cases, whether they win or not. That's not if the Justice Department decided if they won every case or not, P. Diddy would be behind bars for the rest of his life right now. But it's not up to the Justice Department. It's up to Whether you think they did a bad job doing it is a different issue, but I think to say it's too soft was a bad choice
I
of
think they did
words.
a bad job and they really took their time with that and they could have really hammered it out
Okay, they
before
took their time with it. You don't even
2024.
understand the. Then you don't even understand. You weren't even following the cases. Then, if you're gonna say they took their time
Maybe
with
I
it, they
don't
tried to
understand.
rush the cases through, and the only reason it was paused is because the judicial the judges kept blocking them and pausing them, and then the whole thing with the Supreme Court, so all the cases had to be paused because the Supreme Court decided they want to hear the immunity thing.
Okay. I want to talk about the her investigation, that interview.
I do too.
So I kind of, first of all, let's acknowledge that Biden clearly has memory problems and they should have never had him try to run again. We know this. However, I didn't realize that this man was a neurological, well, you know what I mean, a doctor who could
So let's
assess that
start
he's
with what the her investigation is, the because you probably aren't aware. This is about the documents that Joe Biden had in his house that he wasn't supposed to have. The same thing that Donald Trump was being charged for having documents in Mar-a-Lago. Joe Biden did the same thing. So this was an investigation to try to balance out the fact that, oh, we already charged Donald Trump with all these stuff and you did the same thing. So that's what this investigation was. So he was asking him about the documents that he had in his beach house. And so you have a problem with the questions he was asking him, or what?
I don't have a problem with the questions he was asking him. I have a problem that he decides, based on this one interview, on this one day, that he is suddenly like totally inept. And it's just like you have to, he just takes it out of context and he generalizes it. And it's like, yes, we know in hindsight that that was true, but it's just, I feel like I didn't realize he got his medical degree somewhere. I thought he was an
So,
investigator.
so you think he should have brought charges against Joe Biden, is what you're saying?
I mean, first of all, I guess if you do the crime, you gotta do the time. But it was just like well, then this whole thing of like he's not gonna bring charges because he doesn't think a jury would convict him. I feel like a jury would.
But so in one of the parts speaking to her, they said vindication. Uh, they clearly talked to Robert Hur for this book. Like
Obviously.
that's the only way you find out who was texting him what is they talk to him. They said one of the texts he got was vindication. And I agree that's right. I think the debate did vindicate Robert Hur because the media and Kamala Harris went out and totally like wrecked this guy's like reputation, totally slandered him, saying it was a gratuitous report. And then he said his reaction was, "This is so sad." And I agree that the debate was a really sad moment for the country.
I feel like that debate was literally it was like these are our options. It was horrible. It was a horrible debate.
It was like a punch. I think every American watching it got punched in the face
It was horrible. Anyway, and
because then they mentioned uh one of the Democratic donors. Oh no, see, I forget. It was a Democrat, an unnamed Democrat, said, "Just who the hell is running this country?" And that's a question I think we all had after the debate.
well, yeah.
Because then they point out in the book that after the debate, there was all these calls of like, you got to do a bunch. If you want to stay in this you need to do interviews every night. You need to be doing real town halls every night. Like you need to prove that you just it really was just a bad night, and he wouldn't do it. And they said he couldn't do what people were calling on him to do to prove his acuity. That's why he didn't do it because he couldn't do it, and that was
Right.
clear. Um, that's really Do you have anything? I have one final note I want to make, and then I'll
I have
move
one final
on.
note I want to make too.
All right. Do you want to go first or last?
I'll go last because I think it should resonate more.
I have on a positive note. I liked that they mentioned Navy, his seventh granddaughter or grandchild.
Oh, I felt
I like
bad for
that they
her.
put that in the book. I feel bad for her too. And, she's got shitty Hunter Biden as her father,
Mm-hmm.
who's on podcast telling people how to smoke crack cocaine. So I'm glad that they acknowledged her in the book, something that Jill Biden and Joe Biden struggled to do for the first 3 years of their presidency.
Well, because it's like they can't acknowledge anything that doesn't align with that. They're the perfect family.
And that was something that not just they can't acknowledge that makes them not perfect as a family, but as a political figure too. It's like he and his aides were so afraid to acknowledge real issues like inflation and the border crisis because they thought talking about it would make people think about it. But the thing is, people are thinking about it because they're feeling it. You feel the price of eggs when you go to the store. And so not talking about it is just tone deaf. So that is a part of the failings of the campaign on the top of the obvious one.
Is that your last note?
That is my last note. I have a
My
half note, but I'm gonna save it to see if you address it or not.
my note is that, and I've already kind of said this before, we put all of the blame on Biden and his administration, but we don't put hold any Democrats' feet to the fire. Because you will see throughout this book, all of the people, they even towards the end, they're in meetings to decide what to do because this guy is incompetent. And not a single powerful Democrat challenges him.
Well, yeah, because just to support what you're saying, the meeting you're referring to is it's like like JB Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, the governors met with him like
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And no one thought to say, "What the fuck are you doing, bro?"
Literally, not a single one of them. They could have easily, if one person, all it would take would be one person to say, I don't trust him as a candidate. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. They all would have done it.
And then they talk about how JB, because what I also thought was interesting, and I thought this was kind of smart on her part, was Kamala Harris, after she found out she was going to be the candidate, they said that she herself called all these people. Like she called Obama, she called Pelosi, and she called the governors.
Yeah.
And she eventually got them to like twist their arm to be like, okay, I'm gonna support you. I'm definitely not gonna run. And she said like the purple, like she was concerned about Shapiro, but he ended up like being really willing to support her. And then she was concerned about Whitner, Whitmer,
Whitmer.
and
Yeah.
uh,
Pritzker.
Newsom and Pritzker. Pritzker, she said, didn't answer her call, and Pritzker was like one of the only ones that was like wanting to run, but he didn't want to be the only one to run. And my response to that is if you want to be the goddamn president of the United States, you can't be afraid to be the only one to do something.
I agree. Marianne Williamson knew she was never going to win, and she still put her hat in the ring.
Look
And
at Dean Phillips, who they talk about in the book a little bit, but like, because he had been Dean Phillips, he's a normal traditional Democrat. He is not like a moderate or someone who's like Republican adjacent. Like he is a liberal, right? But his issue was this age thing. And he was trying to give people an opportunity to say, like, if we want to advance based on progressive, whatever values, and we want to win, we need to ditch this candidate and pick someone else. And the media destroyed him. And the Biden administration obviously hated him because he was running against Biden. And
But
now
that's
this
the
guy
whole
is
thing. It needed to be someone powerful. It couldn't
right.
just be Joe Schmo. It needed
But
to
my
be
point is, he
someone like
stood up
Pritzker.
anyway. Someone like Marianne Williamson stood up anyway during the
Yeah,
because she, Dean Phillips, RFK even before he switched.
he was gonna run anyway, and I hate RFK.
But like the point is, like these were people doing it, but like it would have been different if it was like someone like a Pritzker, like a
Right.
Newsom.
It would have held more weight, and it would have showed that the thing is the reason why they probably didn't do it is because it would have been
They didn't want to be
political career
pariahs. That's what they
suicide.
said. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to be pariahs. It would have
But the good
alienated
thing
them from the
about
party and it would have blew the whole party up. But that's probably that's what needs to happen. I'm sick of these parties pretending to be united, but then behind the scenes it's like no one can agree on anything.
but whatever.
Yeah. I don't like a lot of the
I didn't like this
decisions people
book. I
made. I
didn't
didn't
like
like
this
this
book.
book either. It was a waste of time.
I don't like Jake Tapper. Reading his book made
No.
me like him even less, and I don't really like this Alex Thompson guy. But I just because I think he's a kooky, just not based on this book, but just based on like other interviews I've seen with him.
Yeah.
All right, but
Okay.
let us know what you thought of the book, and let us know what you thought of our opinions of the book by writing it to twins at twinfluenced.net.
Do you want to get into love it or hate?
Yeah, let's do one in one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Uh, I have my Duncan one, but I'm gonna save it for a
You
different one.
foreshadowed it. I feel like you gotta give the people what they want.
Fine, even though I have a better one, but okay. So, love it or hate it, the Dunkin' latte.
Is that really it? I never had it. I don't drink sugar.
It's literally so good. I love it. Love it. And you gotta stop at Dunkin' and get me the Dunkin' latte.
Today.
Yeah.
Okay. Lo-
Should I do my
love it.
other one?
Let me do mine first. Love it or hate it when strangers physically grab you and hold you when you are trying to walk away.
That's never happened to me, but I hate it.
I hate it too, and this has happened to me three times in the last year, and it's been very traumatic every time. The first time was I was on the train and I was going home, the Green Line, the CTA, after I had an evening class. The class ended at 8 p.m. and I was on the train at like 8:30 and uh people, if you don't know, now you know, when you ride the Green Line late at night, there's only sketchy people on the train. And this guy was harassing me and he like sat right next to me and was like, kept trying to interact with me. And he was being really weird. And his face was all tatted up and he was really dirty looking. I was like, don't want you to touch me. I don't want to talk to you. So I just like didn't say anything. I was like, I'm just going to move to the other. I was the only one in this train car with this guy. So that's extra scary. Except for there's one other old man on the other end of the train. So I was like, I'm gonna just get up and move to the other end of the train so I'm not like completely alone. And when I stood up to move, this guy grabbed me and tried to hold me. And I like started screaming at him, like, don't touch me. So that was really scary. Then another time was when I was at a bar. This was Halloween, I think. And I don't even know what was happening. But then I was like ordering my drink or something. And I went to walk away. And this old man grabbed my arm and like wouldn't let me walk away. I'm like, don't fucking touch me. Like, that's so weird. So I just hated that. And then the most recent time was last week. We had Westfest here in Westtown, and it was a horrible experience. We were just walking through it. We weren't like at the fest, but we were walking through, and this weird lady like grabs my arm while I'm walking and like pulls me back, and I'm like like, what the heck? Go to pull my arm away from her, and she's like gripping him onto my arm. I'm like, it really hurts. I'm like, what? I'm like, don't grab me. What's your problem? All just to tell me how beautiful I am. And it's like, I don't need to hear that. I already know. And I just hate it.
Those old women are so weird with that. They're like so weird with that.
Yeah, that just scared me.
But at
I
least
get
hers is
spooked
the least
easy.
malicious.
Well, no, they all three of them were of along that same lines of they
Oh,
just and it's just like I don't need to hear that from you.
well, don't dress like you want attention.
Okay, the first one, I was literally dressed in jeans and a hoodie. The second one, I was in my cute Taylor Swift costume, so I had that one coming for sure. But then in the one last week, I had jeans and a t-shirt on. Really cute jeans and a really cute t-shirt, but it was still just jeans and a t-shirt.
Wow.
Okay,
That never happens to me.
I'm sorry.
Once when I used to
Sorry, people
wear,
don't feel the need to, people aren't compelled to hold you against your will to tell you how beautiful you are.
okay, but
Sorry.
once I would, when I used to wear my, like my whatever foundation or whatever, to work to cover like my acne, like my red on my face. Um, and people would like comment on it. Like this weird guy said like, "Oh, you look cute today." Or like people would say stuff like that. And so then I stopped wearing it because I was like, I don't want people to talk about my appearance. So I was like, I would rather look ugly than if people say nothing.
That's how I feel walking Fred is people always feel the need to, and even like with your dog too, Daenerys. I hate when people feel the need to stop me to tell me like how beautiful the dog is. It's like it just makes me. I'm just gonna try and find like the ugliest dog possible when I get a dog, so I'm not stopped on the street to be told how beautiful the dog is. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, she's very beautiful, and I'm always stopped, and it's like I can't pronounce her breed, so it's like an extra anxiety thing because
And
they always ask.
they're always like, a what?
I
A
know,
what?
I know. No one's heard of her breed either.
People always ask what Fred is, and it's like he's clearly a mutt. He doesn't look like anything. The reason you don't know what he is because he's nothing. You are nothing. You will always be nothing. All right, I think we should leave it there, and we'll save our
Okay.
the for next week. And so let's talk about. I just want to give a little tease about what we want to talk about next week. Next week we are going to go through Cardi B legal scandal. Right? We're gonna go through
I
our love it
guess.
or hate it, right into moral dilemma at moral dilemma at twinfluenced.net to get your moral dilemma solved. Those who will have a moral dilemma to solve next week. We'll do we'll finalize our twinners and losers, and we'll do that next week. Um, and whatever else is currently relevant.
Sounds good.
All right. And with that, oh, we may or may not keep an eye out for live streaming this week, perhaps, and we'll
We'll
leave it there
see.
for now. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
But keep an eye out for that. We have a few more Twinfluence production things in the works in the next few weeks. So be sure to keep listening, keep watching, and we'll see you then. Bye.